even though I'm speaking from, in some ways, from the basis of my Buddhist understanding or from the Buddhist wisdom, but yet really the wisdom of teaching Buddha is very universal. Is that clear? Universal. As such, it's been embraced by people of many religions and also none. And it's very relevant to this modern time. In fact, more than many people think, actually. Some say that in this 21st century, Buddhism is one form of spirituality that perfectly suits this time. It has a potential to make a tremendous contribution, bringing the principle of peace, non-violence, decency, and human respect, compassion into a world that is increasingly complex, fast-paced, stressful, competitive, and materialistic. I know that many of these issues are of particular concern for the young people, because you are the future. And tonight I hope to be able to show how Buddhist wisdom can be applied to really address some of our present-day problems in this modern life, and so doing help all of us to change the world, in fact, for a better. In fact, I was handed a number of questions, many questions, because I asked to really ask you what was that you were really interested in, what were the issues that you had in mind. And so I will try to address some of them in my talk and then directly, but then later, if there's time, I may address others, because I think one thing is very important, this I know from my experience very much, is that, you see, if you have an important question or an important concern in your heart, see, then if you listen with that in your heart, then the whole teaching can be answered to that question. There are two ways to answer questions, just by answering them each individually. But actually some of the questions that you ask are quite deep, requires a lot of, in a sense, understanding for the background, you see. You understand? So even though I may not address all of the questions specifically, but if you kind of keep all your questions or the things that you're concerned in your mind, I think will be answered more in a deeper way. Is that clear? So, first one is, what fundamental principle are the basis of inner peace and contentment? You got it? Because that's a very important one. And I shall try to address that more fully. And here I bring very much the kind of the wisdom and the compassion of His Holiness Dalai Lama. You see, I'm also a student, and so I always study his teachings. And I try to gather together the essence of his message on inner peace and contentment. Now, regardless of who we are, the main purpose of our life, you could call it the heart of being human, is to be happy. You agree? All of us share the same wish, the same right to seek happiness and avoid suffering. But if you look closely, there are two kinds of happiness. One is based on physical comfort. You can call it the happiness of pleasure or the happiness of senses. Whereas other is founded on a deeper mental contentment. The first one is very expensive and often doesn't satisfy you. But whereas if you found the deeper inner contentment, then you will be able to satisfy in a deep way. So many people spend all their time and energy trying to accumulate or maintain material or outer wealth. And it is because of this, it leaves them very little opportunity to cultivate inner wealth, qualities such as compassion and patience. Even though it's possible to cultivate compassion and patience while still functioning well in the world. It's possible. And it is because of this imbalance that makes them particularly vulnerable and unable to cope when really crises and challenges of the world come. But if we have this deeper inner peace and contentment, this inner wealth, then even when we go through suffering, our minds can still be happy. This explains how there are some people who have every material advantage but yet remain dissatisfied and discontent, while there are others who are always satisfied and content, even amidst the most difficult of circumstances. As the saints of the past, the great saints of the past used to say, it is the foolish that go looking for happiness outside of themselves. Because once you go looking for happiness outside yourself, then you have no control. Whereas it's the learned and the wise know, all the happiness and cause of happiness is present in our mind and heart. I will talk about this later, more about the mind, which is really the key to everything, understanding the mind and heart. Is that clear? That's why he only says, in fact, you could say the principal characteristic of genuine happiness is inner peace and contentment. If you have contentment and inner peace as your basis, as your ground, you see, if you have inner peace and contentment as your basis, as your ground, then your mind will be relaxed and at ease. And if your mind is relaxed and at ease, then no matter what difficulties or crises you encounter, you will not be disturbed. And your basic sense of well-being will not be undermined either. As a result, you'll be able to carry on your everyday life, your work, and your responsibilities more efficiently. Your mind will have also the wisdom to discern what to do, what not to do. And in turn, your life will become happier. And when even difficulty rises, you'll be able to turn them to your advantage. So, for your own inner peace and stability, taking care of your mind and heart is crucial. Once your own mind is more at peace, then both inner and outer harmony will automatically follow. Now, often the Tibetan masters, when they talk about mind, they touch the heart. Because it's like a mind and heart are the really, mind on the deeper level is also the heart. Is that clear? Okay. Now, you see, there was a question which says, how can we transform our mind and maintain our awareness in the world full of distraction? These are the kind of, because there were many questions, but they were kind of, words may be different, but really speaks to this. So here, I want to share with you the most important teaching of the Buddha. Because you see, because actual teaching Buddha is very vast. Just what Buddha taught alone is 108 volumes. Not to talk about what the great Indian masters taught, which is about over 200 volumes. The Buddhist Bible is about 300 volumes, not just one book. But yet at the same time, what's wonderful, it can all be summed up. In fact, Buddha, in a really kind of essential way, he said, what is really Buddhism? What is the heart of Buddhism? He says, the entire teaching of the Buddha can be summed up into one single statement by the Buddha, which is to tame this mind of ours. To tame, to conquer, to subjugate. But maybe you don't like these words. Tame, especially the Dutch. Tame, subjugate, conquer. So if you don't like that, we can say transform, which is more friendly. In fact, His Holiness Dalai Lama, more recently, he keeps saying, Buddhism is about transforming the mind and the heart. Okay? Are you all right? Hello? Please look at me. Don't be shy. Look at me. Sometimes you see, when you look at me and focus, there's a new research, scientific research, called mirror neurons. Sometimes when you focus on a person, your brain can match the mind of that person. So that when I communicate the wisdom teachings, you see, when you just focus on that, you could get a little bit of this. Okay? Without studying. Without doing much work. That's why always I try to create very much an atmosphere. Many lamas, we discuss about the quality of different teachers. They always tell me that I have the little bit of ability not only to communicate, but create an environment of the teaching. So therefore, not only the words, that's why I think earlier it was said, not only listen with your ears, but with your eyes, with your body, with your mind and heart. Because words only communicate only a partial, only a little bit only. So that's why also you see when you talk about meditation, if you listen to the words, focus on the words, that's a meditation. Particularly the words of wisdom. And if you look, for example, if you just focus on the words, that itself is meditation. Because what is meditation? Fundamentally, is the state of non-distraction. The state of non-distraction. The state of non-distraction. With mindful awareness. So when you focus on the words, that can also be transformation. Also, when you look, you see, focus. And then sometimes you see, you can be inspired. Is that clear? With your mind and heart open. As one great Zen master put it, Zen mind is the beginner's mind. In the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities. In the expert, there's few. What is a beginner's mind? Is an open mind, an empty mind, a ready mind. Is that clear? In fact, one of the most important things is to be open. Actually, people are afraid to be open for fear of being hurt. But actually, in closing, we get hurt. Because if we really open fearlessly and love fearlessly, is the key to also happiness. Is that clear? Now, so that the entire teaching Buddha, you see, in fact, the great master said, the entire teaching Buddha summed up into one statement by Buddha. To tame, to conquer, to transform this mind of ours. In fact, what's amazing is, if you transform your mind, okay, maybe through meditation or through compassion, then what happens is that your own perception and your experience and your perception is transformed. Thereby, even the appearance and circumstances will appear differently. You understand? Because everything is subjected to one's experience. That's why, hence, the importance of transforming the mind. As Buddha said, all fear and anxiety come from a mind that's untamed. He further explained that there is nothing to fear except your own untamed mind. Because even though we fear things, but actually fundamentally is one's own mind. If you transform one's mind, then all that we fear are less fearful. But when our mind is in an anxious, worrisome state of mind, when you not transform your mind, then you become very prone to fear and anxiety, which can then eat you up. Is that clear? So, mind is in fact the root of everything. In the teachings it is said, mind is the universal ordering principle. Is the creator of happiness and creator of suffering. It's creator of what we call samsara and creator of what we call nirvana. By now you know, I think the samsara is a term that's very much used in the West, isn't it? So is nirvana. People have some idea. But if you were to explain a little bit, that's a very nice definition of samsara. Basically, samsara means a vicious circle. Vicious cycle. Is that clear? Samsara is a cycle of existence of birth, death, characterized by suffering and determined by harmful emotions, our action, the karma. Put it this way, because of ignorance and destructive or negative emotions, we engage in negative actions which result in suffering. That's samsara. Whereas the opposite nirvana is through knowledge and wisdom, which counteracts or purifies our ignorance, and by developing the positive emotions such as love and compassion. For example, love is an antidote to anger. In fact, the Buddha said, fire, just as fire cannot destroy fire, anger cannot destroy anger. It is only through love. So through positive emotions, such as love and compassion, can transform, and then engaging in beneficial actions result in happiness. Is that clear? But then there's a wonderful saying by a great saint in the 9th century, a very great master, and whose works on compassion, he is one of the greatest masters of compassion. His revelations, teachings are really the source of his own Dharma. Dharma says, if anything I've learned of compassion and of bodhicitta, which is the heart of enlightened mind, I owe it to this great master. He says in a very moving way, he said, though longing to be happy, in their ignorance they destroy their own happiness as if it were the worst enemy. Though they wish to get rid of suffering, yet they rush headlong towards it. That's samsara. You want happiness, but you do everything that destroys that. Even though you don't want suffering, yet you rush head towards it. Though I find this very inspiring. Though longing to be happy, in our ignorance, we destroy our own happiness as if it were the worst enemy. I think you know this anyway. Though we wish to get rid of suffering, yet we rush headlong towards it. Our aim and our actions are contrary because of ignorance. and so on. That is the vicious cycle of samsara. So even you see, and whereas nirvana is literally the state beyond suffering and sorrow, it can be said with the Buddhahood itself. So as one poet, John Milton, he said in Paradise Lost, he said, mind is its own place and in itself can make a heaven of hell or hell of heaven. If we know how to work with mind, that is to say, know the essential nature of mind, then mind is one of the most wonderful things, source of happiness. Whereas, if you don't know how to work with your mind, and instead fall prey to your negative thoughts and emotions and destructive emotions, then your mind is your very nightmare. Is that clear? Really? So very much. But at the same time, there's a wonderful message, as one great Buddhist saint said, which Dalai Lama quotes often. He says, one of the most wonderful quality of our mind is that it can be transformed. We can always change it. We can always transfer. There's always hope. So therefore, you see, as you know, happiness, it doesn't exist objectively, isn't it? Otherwise, we probably bought it and are very securely, permanently happy. Unfortunately, that's not the case. In fact, you realize that happiness is subjected to one's experience. So therefore, unfortunately, whether you like it or not, we have to go to work with the mind and the heart. Is that clear? But it's also a wonderful message because it tells you where we need to work. We need to work with the mind and heart in order to be happy and avoid suffering. So there's a way. Where's the main switch? Like if there's a power, goes off. Where's the main switch? The main switch is in the mind. Mind is the forerunner of everything. As Buddha said, we are what we think. All that we are arise with the thoughts. With the thoughts we make the world. Speak or act with pure mind and happiness will follow. We are what we think. All that we arise with the thoughts. With the thoughts we make the world. Speak or act with in pure mind and trouble will follow. As the ox that draws the cart. So, do you get the main point? It is actually main thing is working with the mind. And the meditation is a way, to put it very simply. We can present meditation in so many complex ways, but to simply, meditation is really on a deeper level. It is said, is a process of coming to know one's mind. And to know ourselves, overcome ourselves. So, remember earlier said, of course we don't have time to develop all these points in detail. I'm just giving you the essential, the heart advice, or the heart essence. But since you're very intelligent, I'm sure you can really grasp the main point and then work with that. So therefore, mind is the root of everything. It's the creator of happiness, creator of suffering. And he said, it is also the creator of samsara and creator of nirvana. Now here I'm going quite deeply, because normally you don't hear this being said in the kind of more public setting or teachings. The masters don't teach, but I feel this is such important that I always share it, because I feel if you understand this, you understand something very important about your mind. Because when you talk about the samsara, mind is the creator of samsara, mind is creator of nirvana, because the samsara is a state of suffering, ignorance and suffering, whereas nirvana is a state of peace. Is that clear? So, if mind is the creator, it's the same mind. It's the creator of samsara and nirvana. So then you might ask, what kind of mind creates samsara? To cut the chase and come to the main point. What is the, for example, what kind of mind creates samsara and what kind of mind creates nirvana? Now the great masters, you see, they say, great masters, they say, there's something very moving. When I first had heard this, it was extraordinarily moving. I was so inspired. It's almost I had, like all my, in English there's a kind of an expression. You have goose pimples, or, you feel like, for lack of a better word, really, just like almost I was so inspired, really. My whole body went through a transformation when I heard this. Because when you hear the truth of that, it really speaks to you. That is, this master says, he demonstrates with his gesture, said, samsara is mind turned outwardly, lost in its projection. That is to say, lost in the stories of thoughts and emotions and all the cinema. That's samsara. Whereas nirvana is mind turned inwardly, recognizing true nature. Isn't that very profound? Now, when you speak of, when you said this, there's something very important to understand, is that generally, when we talk of mind, we think of mind as just thoughts and emotions. You understand? Thoughts, emotions are, if you say what mind is, thoughts, emotions, feelings. But actually, that's only one aspect of mind. That's only its outer appearance, like the sun's rays, but not the sun itself. So the teachings speak of, the wisdom teaching they speak of two things. Mind has two aspects. Its appearance aspect is thoughts, emotions, but the most important, its essence and nature. That means that what mind really is, the essential nature of mind. Is that clear? Essence and nature of mind. The trouble with us is our mind is turned outwardly. We are lost in thoughts, emotions, stories, and there's no end to stories, no end to projection. So no end to samsara. Whereas what we need to do is to cut that and turn your mind inwardly. When you say turn your mind inwardly, doesn't mean you just turn and like you almost looking at the back of your eyes of your socket. No, like that. Turn your mind inwardly means actually dropping the projection. Instead of looking outwardly, you look inwardly. Inwardly. Not in an introverted way, but in a very spacious way. There's a very profound saying by the great master, said that it is not outwardly looking, but inwardly seeing. Actually, all the answers also come when you look inwardly. In the environment of teachings, when you listen to the teachings, slowly by listening to the teachings, when there's a transformation that takes place in yourself, then you find the inner answer, the deeper answer to your questions. And they all fall together. Is that clear? Fall into place. Most important is to be spacious. For no rhyme or reason. Just be spacious and centered, open. And you see, the main thing with us is we are doing so many things. We are speaking so much. We are thinking, in fact, too much. But we do not know the doer. We do not know the speaker. We do not know the thinker or the stinker. You see, as a result, we lost the sense of being. Sense of being. Samsara's mind turned out the loss in thoughts, emotions, stories. And then, of course, we become very... there was a story about how do you get affected by all the information, noises, everything. Because when you just get really swept by all this, because you have no ground. We have to find our ground, our own inner stability and peace, which is always present. It's only a breath away. And it's only in just slightly turning your mind, you can find peace. Or in the wrong turning, you find confusion. There's a wonderful saying in the teaching for the pardos in the moment of death. They say, in an instant complete enlightenment, in an instant complete confusion. So that wonderful saying, it is not outwardly looking, but inwardly seeing. So therefore, really, it's amazing. I find this amazing. Not only because I come from this tradition, having lived in the West for so many years and teaching, I find more and more the extraordinary wisdom, so extraordinary compassion. In fact, I find when you look at the teachings are but just compassion, wisdom and compassion, and love. I remember once someone came to me, after I'd written the Tibetan Book of Living Dying, someone came to me. There are many people come and offer their really gratitude, how it helped them with the family and everything. But one person came to me, particularly in America, he said, I don't know how you did it, but the book loved me completely. Yeah. Then it's that. It's about love. In fact, when I think of the teaching of the Buddhas and masters, really, it is the tremendous love, tremendous compassion. When you feel the compassion and the love they offer in the teachings, you're so moved and inspired with gratitude, which then in turn opens you. And through that gratitude and love that you receive, through realizing the incredible gift, you too then in turn able to share that love and compassion to others. You see, the mind is very interesting. In one moment, it's crazy. Okay, now, these teachings you normally not find. It will not be presented like that, but I'm going to really share from your heart of my tradition. I'm speaking to you as if you're a really devoted student, dedicated to years of study. Yeah. Because then you might ask, why we share such things? Because we all have, it is said in the Buddhist teachings, we all have Buddha nature. We all have the potential of enlightenment. These teachings are your own wisdom inheritance. Something amazing about Buddhism is that in all other religions, you can pray to God, you can come near God, but you never become God. In Buddhism, you become Buddha. So it's the most democratic, in a sense. Yeah, most democratic. Because what Buddha taught was when he became enlightened, he saw that everyone had the potential of enlightenment. And he really wanted to teach everyone to overcome their ignorance and negative emotions and to realize their potential of enlightenment. It is because of this that I share these teachings. Because you never know. Often in just one public talk or two, people actually completely their life get transformed. Many people come to me and say, in just one talk, it really changed and transformed their life. So that my hope is that by hearing this, that it would really help to transform your life. And therefore, thereby you can transform the life of others. And that's how we can change the world. Think globally, but act locally. That's why Buddha said, tame this mind of ours. Work with your mind. Of course, It's not for you to tame the mind of others. Tame your mind. Mind your business. First, mind your business. Of course, taking care of others is also a business, but first, mind your business. In fact, His Holiness Dharma quoted, I think, I shared this also in a forum which His Holiness presided over, was about business leadership, I think a few years ago in Hague. I shared there that, you see, once a great leader in India, ancient leader, he was known for his extraordinary leadership, you know. So all the other rulers came to him for seek advice. Then the main thing he taught them is, the main principle, he said, I don't remember the exact quote, but this is the essence, that the main thing is to actually conquer yourself. If you're able to conquer and tame your mind, then you can be a very good leader. You understand? So if you work with yourself, working yourself is the basis of also helping others. So samsara is mind turned outwardly, lost in its projection thoughts. But nirvana is mind turned inwardly, recognize true nature. Because key thing is really recognizing nature. Remember I said earlier, I forgot to complete it. I said, remember, mind in one moment is absolutely crazy, isn't it? One moment, it's really crazy, but actually interesting. In the next breath, if you know how to turn your mind inwardly, if you know how to bring your mind home, allow your mind to settle in the state of natural great peace, in a matter of seconds, the same mind, which is the source of so much trouble, can be transformed into something extraordinarily wonderful. Same mind. Is that clear? Really the same mind. It is when that happens, I remember my master saying, it's as if it's like a big Hoover that is taking, like taking all the clouds away, and then this clear sky like nature dawns. Like in an instant, all your thoughts just being kind of dissolved into the all-pervasive nature of the sky-like nature of your mind. In a matter of seconds, that you can transform your mind and find the peace of your true being. And that is by turning your mind inwardly. When you turn your mind inwardly, it is said, you're turning in the direction of wisdom. So the two things, essentially. Even though thoughts, emotions, and aspect of your mind, but if you let your mind be carried by your thoughts, emotions, then source of suffering. You understand? Whereas the main thing you need to know is not to just come to know your thoughts, emotions, which are endless. Because if you go and chase after thoughts, emotions, it's a bit like when you send somebody to look for somebody, that person gets lost, and you send another person. Everybody gets lost. A very famous saying, it's like keeping the elephant at home, but looking for its footprint in the forest. Because elephant is here. Particularly this elephant is here. We're looking for the elephant. We're searching for ourselves, but we're looking in the wrong direction. I sometimes tease people and say, the trouble is our eyes are turned outwardly, so we think we have to look outwardly. That's the mistake. It is not outward looking, but the secret is in the inward seeing. Probably you didn't expect this tonight, isn't it? This wisdom. This is really the secret. Because the Buddhist tradition has an extraordinary wisdom and experience of working with the mind, really. Particularly in this, the greatest contribution it can make in this day and age is the biggest problem we have is of mental suffering, especially in the developed countries. And the Buddhist teaching have extraordinary wisdom and experience and also methodology as precise as science. While the West was developing technology and science, in the laboratory of Himalayas, Tibet's best minds were researching on the understanding of mind and its wisdom, which are as precise as science. His methodology, quite extraordinary. So particularly Tibetan teachings have a tremendous wisdom. And this is where it can count. For example, now there are a lot of interesting research that's been happening. This is inspired by His Holiness. His Holiness Dalai Lama is very interested in science. He's been having series of over 20 years, very serious dialogues with many scientists. And he's studying about, himself is very interested in study about, what they speak of destructive emotions. I attended one of the conferences there. And because of His Holiness's, interest in that, many scientists also became interested in Buddhist teachings. And as a result, there have been serious research done with actually practitioners, some of the Tibetan lamas. And what they found, but previously they thought, like the violinist who play like 10,000 hours, the particular finger, that part that affects your brain. It's called neuroplasticity. But now what's interesting with these teachings is actually, it doesn't have to be just, connect with your nerve or this, but it can be just through mental training, through mind training, in meditation, compassion. They found that those lamas, some of them my friends also, those who practice from 10 to 40,000 hours, they find that parts of brain that form positive emotions are really high, and parts of brain that work negative emotions are a little bit out of order. What's interesting is not only parts of brain that form positive emotions are lit up when they're practicing, but also when they're not practicing. That means there's a permanent damage on the brain. They're always happy. Yeah. But then also further research, recent research have shown that not only you need to practice 20,000 hours but actually even if you practice like 20 minutes, 40 minutes there for a month or so, it does definitely transform your mind. And really, in terms of benefit for health, is quite extraordinary. In terms of mental health, developing immunity system. I'm not going into all these details, which I'm going to share during the weekend when I teach here. For 4 days I'm doing a retreat here. I share this. But later, if you're interested, we can have it available for you all, these result of this research, which are. So, the main thing is, when your mind is turned out, lost in thoughts and emotions, that's the story of samsara. The main thing is really for us to come and know ourselves, come to understand our own mind, the essential nature of mind. In fact, also, the French philosopher Pascal once said, all of men's difficulties, in those days they always said men, which also means women anyway, all of men's difficulties rises from his inability to sit quietly in a room by himself. Because we've forgotten how just to be. We've lost, we almost into action, always mind turned out, lost in thoughts and emotions. What we need to do, bring our mind home. Allow mind to settle in the state of natural peace. And then you'll find your inner peace and the confidence. When you restore the sense of really being, actually you come to meet yourself. I always tell people, we are scattered everywhere. Unfortunately, and nobody's at home. And actually you miss yourself very much. In fact, in seeking for happiness, seeking for everything, love, all these things, actually we are seeking to find ourselves. Ultimately, we are all seeking to find ourselves. But we go in quite a complex way. Someone was asking about relationship, is God concerned about it? So I think the key thing is in the relationship also, if you are able to really be well in yourself, then you can contribute well in the relationship. Do you understand? That's important. You need to really find yourself. And then you can be for somebody and share. When you have so much problem and so much lacking, then you're always, looking for, never finding, because you're always looking, always looking, always looking. Mind turned out looking, but actually the answer is here. That is the key. And so, very much the question is, how can we tame and transform our mind and maintain our awareness in a world full of distraction? As first of all, coming to know one's mind. But the way to do that, one of the best way, is the practice of meditation. And then to integrate the practice into our daily life. In fact, as I said to you before, meditation is a process of coming to know one's mind. But the meditation itself is the state of non-distraction. But the meditation itself, you understand? What is meditation? What is the essence and fundamental is the state of non-distraction. Like this. While aware, mindful, and present. Instead, 25% mindful, 25% aware. Aware means, you see, is because even if you're mindful, I noticed that when someone asked, how many of you meditate, everybody was raising hands, so kind of what meditation is. So if you're like meditating, you see, focusing on a particular technique like watching the breath, if you don't have mindfulness, you have the mindfulness, but if you don't have awareness, which is really a kind of vigilance, a kind of awareness that knows whether you're mindful or not. If you're not, then after a few minutes you'll be doing all kinds of things. You'll be starring in your own movie, having all kinds of daydreams, playing in the World Cup, becoming the Dutch team. Yes, you can. So awareness is very important. 25% mindfulness, 25% awareness, and 50% abiding spaciously. As one great Zen master put it, the way to control cow or sheep is to give a big grazing field. So with the mind, you give space. You give your space. Whenever things are difficult, give yourself space. Never give up, but give a little bit of space. If you give a little bit of space, that's as good as a break. So meditation, therefore, is a process of coming to know one's mind. It's a way of coming to understand, to work with your mind, and a way of being with your mind so that you get, in a sense, the best result from it. In fact, meditation can be presented. Meditation can be presented as a vast topic, you see, one that is both very rich in detail and extremely profound, but there's no need to be intimidated, because the basics of meditation is actually very simple, which means, in fact, everyone can meditate, and you can do it almost anywhere and anytime. If you want to transform your mind, it does not work if you try to force it on your mind. Instead, the most effective way to train your mind is by making friends with your mind. You got it? Just as you can't make friends with someone if you're always arguing with them. So you cannot make friends with your mind by just struggling always against your thoughts and emotions and suppressing them or trying to make them go away. But also it doesn't work to surrender to your mind, especially your thoughts and emotions, by following blindly and believing whatever tells you. For example, when you have good thoughts, you think you're good. When you have bad thoughts, you're bad. But they are just thoughts. Whatever clouds come doesn't make the sky. Clouds don't make the sky. So thoughts don't really make you. Thoughts, emotions, just thoughts, emotions. Merely thoughts, emotions. If you have a really understanding of realizing thought, if you really can view thought as merely thoughts, emotions merely thoughts, you have a much easier way of dealing with them. They become less, they're less bewitching. They have less spell on you. You become more free of them. You have more humor. So the best way to make friends with your mind is know what your mind loves at the beginning. Because what your conceptual mind loves more than anything is having something to do. So it loves being very active all the time. In fact, if the conceptual mind doesn't have something to keep it busy, then it can create lots of trouble. So in the beginning, you need to start by giving your conceptual mind a job. And that job is called meditation. Meditation is also a skillful means. You go also afterwards beyond meditation. In fact, a simple practice of meditation is sit upright in a comfortable, relaxed position. I think comfortable you are at the moment. Leave your eyes open. I mean, you don't have to do that now. You can kind of visualize yourself doing it. I saw this Kellogg's advertising when this particular guy was looking at eating Kellogg's, the breakfast thing, and seeing somebody dance and just mentally. I thought it was quite funny. But so you can just you can visualize yourself meditating, but it's actually you need to do it yourself, because there's a English saying goes, "Taste of the pudding lies in the eating." Very much. So you sit upright in a comfortable, relaxed position. Leave your eyes open and allow your gaze to be relaxed and natural, but not focusing on anything particular. In a Tibetan tradition, keeping your eyes is very important, because eyes are the medium of wisdom. Lead to the state of what's called a clear light. Then simply relax your mind, allow your mind to be just as it is, open, spacious, calm, yet completely aware. But aware not in a nervous way, but in a relaxed way. Quietly sitting, body still, speech silent, mind at ease or peace. And you simply let thoughts, emotions, whatever rises, come and go, without clinging to them. In fact, meditation is so much easier than most people think, because as long as you are aware of what's going on, and you're able to remain, this is the key thing, if you're able to remain in the state of non-distraction, then whatever you experience is actually meditation. If you're aware, present, in a state of non-distraction, then whatever you do is meditation. I think the most important meditation is in everyday life. That will overcome all your stress, I will talk about that a little bit later, about the benefits of meditation later. And then we'll answer many of the questions that you brought up. In fact, when you first practice, if I give you a little bit of Buddhist, this is speaking more meditation on an essential level, the spirit of meditation. You understand? On an essential, that's how I say. But then when you come down to methodology, if you want to go and follow more gradually, you see, particularly when your mind is, the main point is Buddha realized that the root cause of all our problem is a distraction. So antidote to that distraction is mindfulness. You understand? And particularly, of course, the really essential message of meditation is that if you allow your mind to settle in the state of calm abiding, like a glass of muddy water, if you keep it still, the dirt will settle and clarity will manifest. Even though that's the case, but if your mind is too occupied, too busy, and you're not able to just allow your mind to settle in a spacious way, then you need to have something to do. So hence you have like using an image of Buddha as an object of your practice, or using a sound of mantra can transform the emotion and the energy, and also lightly, mindfully watching the breath. In fact, this is the method that I teach, combining these three methods together into what's called unifying practice, because it really transforms the environment, the energy, the emotion, and also the mind, really. So bringing these three elements together. Just as you can actually, first you begin with that, using image of Buddha, or sound of mantra, or lightly, mindfully watching the breath, which is very much common to many like Vipassana, Zen, and others, but that, when after you have trained in this, you become more, you're able to really anchor your mind, bring your mind in the state of peace more, then next level in the Buddhist training is using senses. Using senses? Senses? Like what you see, hear. Because normally the senses are the source of distraction and suffering. So instead of they become a source of distraction and suffering, that we transform them, in fact, into meditation. Which means that from basic meditation method, when you start using with the senses, it becomes more everyday. It becomes more integrated with life and transforming the distractions of life slowly, slowly. By looking at whatever you see, you leave the seeing in the seeing. Whatever you hear, you leave the hearing in the hearing. You just begin to just simply observing, more directly perceiving, without grasping, enter into your perception, is a way of overcoming the entanglement of, the senses. Is that clear? And then next is one of the biggest challenges in our life is, as well as meditation, is dealing with your thoughts and emotions. Because next, after dealing with sense, then meditation on thoughts and emotions, which are very good. The secret of dealing with thoughts and emotions is neither to reject them nor allow them to overpower us and sweep us away. So key is to give them space and simply beware of them. The one skillful method of meditation, sometimes called labeling, involves simply recognizing thoughts and emotions. It's simply recognizing thoughts as thoughts, emotions, emotions. It's like, when thoughts come, you say, oh, that's thought, that's your place, Emotion comes, emotion. If jealousy comes, it's jealousy. You give like a little place is here, Do you understand it? You leave everything in it. You leave jealousy in jealousy. You create a very nice space where you have space for everybody. Because, it's a bit like, you invite a family reunion where all your family is squabbling and, And you give them a big mansion. Each of them you give them a suite, nice suite, and we give them everything they want. So that a bit like that. It just as the example, the way to control cow or sheep is to give a big grazing field. With the mind, if you give space and allow all your thoughts to just be in that and not get involved. Yeah. If you allow that as a way to overcome them. Our main problem is that we usually treat thoughts and emotions in two ways. Either we obey them and follow them without question, or we reject them. In this profound approach, whenever thoughts and emotions rise, we simply look at them directly. Through this method, thoughts and emotions become support for calming your mind, instead of becoming a source of distraction. But be careful again, when you just look at the thoughts, not to hold on to each thought's emotions as they rise. Whatever rises in the mind, just watch it come and watch it lightly and let it pass. In fact, there are many questions, but one of them, he says, how can we find inner peace in a hectic everyday life? During vacation or meditation or yoga retreat, this seems easy, but in a hectic environment, being in a big city, working full-time, and busy social life, is difficult to find a daily practice. Actually, the main thing is, you see, the secret is not to treat your life and your meditation as two separate things. That's the key thing. Is to, in fact, integrate them. You understand? For example, you can also integrate meditation in everyday life while you're walking, eating, caring for others, whatever the situation. For example, as you walk down the street, bring attention to your surroundings. Look at the people you pass, the buildings, the cars, the bicycles, of course, in Holland, and the flowers, you see, that may be planted along the way. But then if someone catches attention, you don't really have to say to yourself, oh, he's like this, or she's like that. Oh, I don't look. I don't look at her pullover or her dress or her makeup or lipstick. Don't get into kind of or that building is awful. Don't indulge in judgmental commentaries. But just simply allow your mind to just simply purely be aware of objects as you encounter. So when you bring your pure awareness to your activities like this, then the distraction, the worry will gradually disappear. And your mind will settle and become more calm and peaceful. And so when you finally arrive at your destination, like if you're walking to work, when you arrive at the destination, or if you come to an important meeting, you'll be much more relaxed, and you'll be in a more open frame of mind to deal with whatever comes next. Do you understand? And then another benefit of simply observing your perception in this way is that you will find yourself getting less emotionally involved in what you perceive. For example, if when someone starts screaming at you, instead of thinking, oh, this person is yelling at me, you'll be able to think, this person's voice is pretty loud. His tone is a bit sharp. The sound he's making are probably intended to be insulting or hurtful. In other words, by learning how to just rest your attention very lightly on the sensory information you're receiving and not getting involved in emotional or intellectual content, that is to say, by disengaging from the emotional or intellectual content you normally associate with sensory information, nothing will be able to hurt you. Furthermore, if you're able to listen to others non-defensively, you find yourself open enough to respond to them in a way that diffuses any possible anger, and you will also be able to maintain your own integrity. But the trouble is we all become defensive. You understand? We're always defensive. So the main thing is if you just really open, particularly when people are criticizing you. Just open. Just listen. Just listen. Particularly in relationship. And one very wise woman told me that generally you see when you have a problem in a relationship, when a woman cannot love you, does not feel you, because when women can't feel you, they can't love you. You understand? Is that true? When you cannot feel, because you... And then you see, when you start talking, immediately men start thinking, oh, how can I fix the problem? Men always want to fix the problem. But woman is not asking you to fix the problem, just to listen. Just listen. If you just listen, and non-defensively, without judgment, just listen. Really, if you listen, then you can understand. If you really know how to listen, really present, it gives the other person so much satisfaction. And there's kind of you make a connection. As you make a connection, then that other person can feel and feel you. As they can feel you, then can love you. So never be defensive. Just open and listen. In fact, actually, you see, really understanding is the key thing. Like there's one Vietnamese Zen master, he used to say, the Buddha of compassion, the elaborate manifestation, has 1,000 arms and 1,000 hands. In each hand there's an eye. He used to say, the eye is the eye of understanding. So what we need to do, we need to try to understand. Listen and understand. And really be there for that person. Listen and understand. And it's a wonderful process, because actually, if you really listen and be there for the person, it also processes a lot of your own stuff also. It can also really, you feel much better. You feel also very good. You feel also really something, you can also feel a lot of emotional satisfaction, but just being present, And it can also overcome your problems also. Is that clear? In fact, His Holy Dharma often says, a little bit about compassion now. You see, when we're just thinking of ourselves, we're just selfishly involved with ourselves, like how you can get ahead in your life and this thing. When you're just thinking of yourself only selfishly, then you get locked up in this claustrophobic self, where you not only end up not being happy, but there's no end to problems and irritations, and you shirk your responsibility and blame others. But the amazing thing, on the other hand, when you start thinking of others, helping others, or taking care of others, the amazing thing is, in that process of helping others, your own well-being is taken care of as a matter of course. You understand? By helping others, actually you come to realize is the best way to help yourself. And he always used to say also, compassion, you see, I think it was at the end of this conference on destructive emotions, he said, at the conclusion, he said very movingly, you see, people always think compassion is something good for others but not for yourself. He said, that's really that's not true, he said. From my little understanding, he said, I don't know how much my practice of compassion help others, maybe 50%, But the one who really benefits from your practice of compassion is yourself. When you practice compassion and love, your mind and your whole being is transformed. Thereby the benefit that you receive is tremendous. Makes you more secure, more open, altruistic, and it brings so much, well-being. And then become a source of happiness and also benefit to others also. Is that clear? Kind of, you can say, whatever you're doing, whether cultivating mindfulness, of awareness and meditation, whatever you're doing, cultivating the mindfulness, awareness and meditation practice will help you to become more efficient. Because when you really practice, actually it helps you become more efficient. And you accomplish more with less effort and less stress. As Shakespeare said, make haste slowly. There's a Tibetan saying, Kale kale chenan jokpun jokpoli. Jokpun jokpun. If you go fast, you reach slowly. If you do slowly, you reach fast. You make haste slowly, because two biggest problem. I remember one master called Sogyal Rinpoche used to say that biggest problem in this modern world is speed and aggression. So we need to like to slow down. Slow down doesn't mean it's better if you really kind of a little bit slow, not be too much in a hurry, not be too impatient, because sometimes you notice in the morning you're impatient, you're in a hurry, you forget everything, you lock yourself, the key inside, and your coat gets caught in the door, and you just get also your finger gets so when you rush. Whereas if you really, you're in a hurry, but not too much rush, if you do really, particularly if you have developed mindful awareness, you're able to accomplish much more efficiently, with less effort and stress. And the simplicity and the patience, the humor and courage you can find through meditation will help you to avoid being overwhelmed by work or burning out. It will also bring you a certain stability, a certain confidence, with you can face life and the complexity of the world with carefree dignity, with composure and ease and humor. There were some other questions also, like kind of roughly it could be, I find it hard to close myself to all the impulses we get daily through telephone, conversations, even on public transport, advertising everywhere, social media. Life must be fast, and otherwise you fall off the train. How to cope with all this as a young adult? Another thing is we live in such a hurry. We often have too little time to reflect on the important things in life. And I think time is an issue, especially regarding the future and the possibility, the motherhood, because how to be a good mother in the future, a good employer, good partner, good friend to friends and family, and still have time for myself, how to make the right choices. And also another is that I notice that there are many responsibilities these days, working, maintaining a social life, being friends with everyone, and on the internet like Facebook and what do you call LinkedIn? And how can we young professionals meet this and while still keeping a certain kind of inner peace? Well, actually the answer, you already got it. In the way of, when you develop a sense of being. And also, there was one great Zen master, he had a student. The student asked the master, Master, how do you practice enlightenment in everyday life? The master said, by eating and by sleeping. But the student said, but everybody eats, everybody sleeps. Whereupon the master said, everybody doesn't eat when they eat. Everybody doesn't sleep when they sleep. From there came a famous Zen saying, I eat when I eat. I sleep when I sleep. When you're able to act, it's called sometimes Zen one act samadhi. If you're able to be really in the action, but action without I, less ego, but pure action. If you're able to be in everything, then it simplifies all the complex. Is that clear? And all the things I've shared before are an answer to that. But there are a few more that when you practice meditation, it brings a profound transformation on every level of our being. For example, the scattered and fragmented aspect of ourselves come home. We become whole. When we become whole, the wholeness and holiness and healthiness are synonymous. You understand? We become whole. And contradictory voices that dictate, feelings that fight for control of our lives will settle and become friends. We make friends with ourselves. Oh, the pain and distress of struggling with ourselves is dissolved. Negativity is disarmed. Speed and aggression are pacified. Frustration, tension, and turbulent emotions are diffused. The unkindness or the violence and harm in us is removed. So meditation becomes the real inner disarmament. Sometimes in Christianity they say charity beginning at home. That's meditation. You overcome also the feeling of loneliness, hollowness, and lack. We become more grounded with a healthy sense of self-esteem and self-worth. And we become well in our own skin. We are content and happy with who we are. Since we are well in ourselves, not always comparing ourselves to others, we can conquer our fear and inhibition of being with others also. We can gain real confidence and fearlessness with humility. And we can overcome also our shyness and timidity and become more authentic, genuine, and open. Because we are tapping into the latent power of our mind and compassion, our mind becomes more expansive and courageous and reclaim its own strength and freedom. So this then is how we can overcome stress in a very deep way and truly develop the inner peace. And also, when we are truly in touch with who we really are, then we can be completely in touch with also others also. Difficult people and challenging situations that otherwise may have caused us irritation or difficulty becomes easier to handle or even be pacified. Do you understand? Are you understanding what I'm saying? I'm trying to bring more succinctly without taking too much time. Conflicts with others resolve. We have harmony with everyone. And we are naturally easy to get along with. I once told a Dutch person, I remember, and he was expressing a lot of difficulties being with others. He said, if you are less difficult, then things become easier. If you are less difficult, things become easier. Conflicts with others are resolved. We have harmony with everyone, and we are naturally easy to get along with because we are free and uncomplicated. We become free and less uncomplicated. We become also such a good company. People can enjoy you. They like to bring you to a party. And more often, we're able to let go, focusing solely on our own concern and able to develop genuine concern and the welfare of others. There was one question I thought, you see, I'm afraid of seemingly limitless capitalism and accompanying materialism that brings up selfishness even with me. It makes me sad. I guess I should learn a lot about social responsibility, about where to start, what is real and what is not, what makes sense and what does not. Then another one is how to deal with all the challenging things that are linked with life, and like suffering of animals, disease, and environment, violence, etc. Do we have to accept it or fight it or ignore it? I thought I might give a little bit of answer to that. It may not give you the full answer, but just, a little glance. These are very serious concerns. We urgently need the vision and the courage to overcome our narrow, selfish interests. Our old attitude and short-sighted way of treating people and the planet have to change, and they have brought us suffering, and they lie at the root of both economic crisis and destruction of the environment. If we are really able to transform our minds and come to see the impact of our choices and actions in a broader, less self-centered way, then we will naturally make decisions that are more compassionate and respectful of others and environment. Central to the Buddhist view or philosophy or, of the world is that everything is completely interconnected. Every act has a consequences because everything is interdependent, not independent but interdependent. It means that our action, our words and thoughts count. So we have to start by looking at our own actions. This is the point His Holiness Dalai Lama always emphasizes. The fact that we are all deeply connected with one another and with the environment. The Buddha taught that nothing exists in isolation and that all phenomena are interdependent, just as profoundly as he taught that we cannot be happy as long as others suffer. That when we do reach out, we discover the best in ourselves. When we acknowledge our dependence upon one another, it naturally inspires with a sense of universal responsibility and altruism. So in order to care for the global environment and for each other, we urgently need to cultivate a vision of universal responsibility and altruism, which is the message of His Holiness Dalai Lama and the heart of the Buddhist teachings. In essence, these teachings show us that how we can do this by transforming our attitude and the way of thinking through the training of the mind in meditation and compassion. So thank you very much. Thank you.